this week? How's the waning moon treating you? We're in this phase where we are moving closer to Samhain and the veil is thinning. We are connecting to the liminal spaces if we are paying attention. Even if you're not paying attention, a lot of times there are things during this time of year that make you go, You know, even if you're really caught up in your life and you're not even thinking on the spiritual end, it's that time of year where the synchronicities are strong. Hi, Brazil. So as we move towards Samhain, the veil's just getting thinner and thinner. But honestly, right now, don't wait for Samhain. Like Samhain is the only day that the veils are thin. Because really, you know, we have our calendar Samhain, which is the 31st, but there is also the solar Samhain, which is when the sun moves into 15 degrees Scorpio. And that happens usually within like the 6 days after calendar Samhain. So that exact moment where the sun aligns at 15 degrees Scorpio is when the veils are actually said to be the thinnest, but we've always celebrated it on the 31st as the witch's new year. So we are moving into that time of year where it's, you know, the trees are releasing their leaves, everything is changing. We're going from this beautiful height of green and everything growing to everything falling and dying. And that's not only happening externally, you know, the release is not only happening externally, but it is happening internally. There is a shedding, a releasing, and a connecting to all the lineages that have come before you. And that happens when the veils are thin because we're all moving into this place. And it doesn't matter if you're here in the northern hemisphere or if you're in the southern hemisphere. Beltane and Samhain are both a period of the same liminal energies. So we're more easily able to tap into those other dimensional realities as the planetary and the zodiac alignments hit certain peaks and points. Now, Beltane, of course, is on the rebirth portal, and exactly opposite, creating balance, is us in the northern hemisphere, and we are celebrating death. So the rebirth, the new life is celebrated on the southern hemisphere, and the release of life is happening here in the northern hemisphere. Sorry, that light coming in the window is bothering me. It's still coming in. Hang on 1 second. So in this room, I'm setting during different times of the year, the light will come right in and like blind me in that window. So anyway, so we are the universe, this planet Earth, is always in balance. It's always mirroring to us the balance that is possible within us. And we're seeing that outside of us. So it's not like the entire Earth is moving through the portal of death right now, because we have the southern hemisphere that is experiencing the exact opposite. They are experiencing new life while we're letting go of the old life, the old way. Now that happens to women's bodies actually monthly, or anyone that has or has had ovaries, uterus. This flow, even if you've had a hysterectomy, is moving through us monthly of death and rebirth, and also yearly. So as a collective, as a whole, no matter what gender you were born as, we experience this yearly seasonal flux of showing us how life works. You know, we come here with the slate wiped clean. We come to Earth, and and we feel like we have nothing. We're just born and it's like we're supposed to figure this out. But there are clues all over. There's like Easter eggs. We've given ourselves those Easter eggs to figure out what it means to be human. And one of them is through what the wheel of the year is moving through seasonally. And we move through winter and spring, summer, and winter. They're all those, portions. Usually in spring, it's rebirth, and in the summer, it's new life. In the fall, it is death and release, and winter is moving into the spiritual realms. So we have that yearly for all of us. And to make things a little more chaotic on those of us that were born with female body parts, we're also moving through that really strongly every single month. So there's a 28-day cycle for us where we are experiencing that building of energy within us and then that letting go. So it can feel really confusing in the female's body if we are not paying attention and honoring that mirror that is being sent back to us. So right now, if you're in the northern hemisphere, where most of us that I'm speaking to right now are moving through that death portal, that letting go and that release portal. And quite honestly, most of us on planet Earth have a difficult time with change, a difficult time letting go. And the reason that is because, I believe, because of the witch wound, and because chaos has been programmed within us to mean, not death in a natural way. And I'm not sure if I should say death, unaliving in a natural way. We see that, we feel through our DNA that fear of death. And fear of being unalive. I don't even know what I'm allowed to say or not say. Fear of death is only because of the witch wounds and the torture and the pain inflicted on people and the unnatural ways of dying, and in the older honor traditions, death was honored as a rite of passage, and it was a peaceful moving into the liminal space. But because there was so much torture, like beheading, hanging, crushing, drowning, like there was so many, the cruelty of humanity is just, it's beyond me. Sometimes I get stuck in this mindset, in this reality where I start thinking times have never been worse. And then when I pause and I actually look back, like only 300 years ago, you guys, was the witch trials, then I remember, like, actually we've come a long way. We still have a ways to go, you guys. We still have too many of the people trying to control other people and keep us in this codependent narrative, when the way to healing is sovereignty. If each of us has a sovereign path of healing, the collective will together rise. Now, as long as part of us are still trying to control the narrative and have everybody's life look like a certain way, it's gonna continue to be this, just all these things that are hard to look at, hard to see, hard to feel. And really our focus needs to not get too wide right now, and it needs to be more brought inward and focused on our own healing journey. The path of the witch right now is the path of healing. I believe it is not the time for us witches to be doing spells for other people. We need to be doing spells for ourselves. I honestly get a lot of requests for spell work. I would probably be bringing in a lot of money if I did it. I don't believe that in this day and age, that is the call of the witch. I believe that those that are stuck in that old spiral, that old cycle of turning to others to fix their life, is why we're seeing this influx of Etsy witches. Of course, people are trying to take their control back, but what that looks like in our modern days is not doing what they did in the old times. You know, that was needed then. This is now, and the witch's path now is the path of healing, the path of stepping into your sovereignty, being seen as yourself. You know, yesterday I was talking to my husband and daughter and telling them, you know, one of the biggest problems with humanity is that when we have children, we believe that we are supposed to make our children like little clones of what we think the perfect human would be. So when we have these children, no matter how we were raised, like we get this, like, this is what we believe a perfect human would be. So if a perfect human were a tomato, then, and all these people were birthing potatoes and zucchini and cucumbers and, and celery, and yet we're trying to make the celery, the potato, and the cucumber, and the eggplant all a tomato. And this is why one of the biggest reasons that we are all so broken on this planet is because we have never got to be who we are. It is rare to have had parents that allowed or nurtured their child, if it was born a zucchini, to be to be raised in a house that supported them becoming a zucchini, because they were busy trying to make this zucchini a tomato. And the thing is you're never going to make a zucchini a tomato. And if we look at our children like that, and we realize how, you know, all the parents right now stopped exactly what they were doing and started nurturing the genius that was in their child, because we all can't live off of tomatoes alone. And that's the beauty of the age of Aquarius, is that the uniqueness, the rise of people saying, this is who I am. We are seeing that as the trans community rises up and says, you know what, I might have been born with female parts, but I feel like a man. And because I am a sovereign human being, I am allowed to express myself the way that I want. So, you know, I'm giving you that analogy of the tomato because it's so relevant in these human days. Like, we are breaking people, we are causing mental illness in our children by telling them, by gaslighting them their whole life, when our child is a zucchini and we're telling it it's a tomato, and to keep trying to be a tomato. I mean, it might sound elementary, but that is the root of it. And honestly, there is no reason we should be telling people who to be. You know, in my circumstance, that I was raised in a Christian Mormon household. And so I was saying, since I was as young as I can remember, I don't want to eat meat. I don't have my prayers answered when I pray to this God. And yet every time I said that, I was made to believe I was not enough until I did have those experiences that my family considered normal. So everybody's going through this in their own way, shape, or form. I always knew I was a witch, being raised in this Mormon household. So for a lot of us, the healing path and the letting go is the releasing and the shedding of all the layers of clothing that you have took on to make yourself that tomato. As funny as it sounds, you know, when you're raised to be a Christian and you know you're a witch, it's like you're putting on a coat, you're putting on a dress, you're covering this and covering that to try to make yourself fit in, because in our DNA, fitting in means survival. Us as humans, we are tribal beings. And that means that we naturally want to fit in because historically, for so many years, for our ancestors to survive, they had to come together. There was a better chance of survival if you came together. And so, it's programmed in our DNA to try, and of course, to, our parents, our first example of life, their first caretakers. And so it's natural and normal for us to try to be what they want us to be. But when you aren't born what they want you to be, you're constantly denying truth. And so you end up with layers and layers of trauma in the unconscious mind. And even if you were raised in what was the best household, they were still molding you to be that tomato, right? And guaranteed, 99% of us were not born that tomato. So that's why even if you feel like you had what you wouldn't consider trauma, we all have trauma across the board. And this is why I say, and trauma to me is what we carry with us after the traumatic event. And so there's several traumatic events for all of us growing up, from our parents, our grandparents, our teachers, who were all well-meaning, right? This isn't about blaming, pointing the finger, or hating our parents. It's about healing you, healing yourself. And how we heal ourselves, honestly, is by going back to that little child that was in us, and visiting them and honoring their feelings, and finding, digging down and opening and peeling back the layers so that we can move into that place of finding who we really are. Sorry, I hate it when people ask to go live with me. All these creepy men always do that. And so, there's so many things that need to happen on this planet, but at a base level, all of us need to be, I say everyone needs a therapist, because we all need help going back in our life. One way to do this that I've done at different retreats, and I have people do in my witch school, is journaling backwards every year of your life what you can remember. And it's interesting when you do that, the amount of years that you've completely forgotten in your life. And I believe us humans are capable of remembering a lot more than we remember. And part of the epidemic numbers of like Alzheimer's and dementia, and I'm not a doctor, so I'm not trying to give medical advice, but it is due to, there's always an energetic underlying cause, and part of that is the repression of traumatic events. So the amount of trauma that we carry with us, I believe, is just malfunctioning our brains because it's too much. We need to go back and honor that little one within us. And if everyone could do that without pointing the finger and blaming, and just do our healing work on our own, because so often I think we feel like healing means that we go to our parents or we go to the people that harmed us and make them apologize. But really, if somebody apologizes for doing the most horrific thing, it's never going to make it right within you. Them apologizing honestly doesn't do anything, even if they admit it. It's about you acknowledging yourself. It's about you acknowledging your own pain. It's about you taking control of your own life. So if you're doing the same spell again and again and it's not working, and you're reaching out to me like, help me do this job spell, help me do this money spell, help me do this love spell, I can't tell you the amount of people I have asking me to do these spells. And it's like, quit worrying about the job, quit worrying about the money, quit worrying about the love of your life, and keep on the path of healing and acknowledging your inner child. I'm not saying don't have your hopes, your wishes, and your dreams, But the mass work that needs to be done is the healing work. Because for you to invite in what you want, the amazing job and everything you're trying to manifest, if you are not healed, you're never going to be able to manifest exactly what you want. There's always going to be a wrench in there. And that's because energetically, your unconscious mind is meant to try to release all that shit that is buried in there. And so when you're trying to manifest, let's use a new job, and there's still some stuff that needs healing, you're gonna attract the wrong job. Not that you're gonna think it's the right job, and then within a few months or a year, you're gonna realize that you attracted the same people and the same situation in different clothing. And so that's why the healing is important, because yes, you can manifest. But if you aren't doing the healing work, the manifestation is always going to end up a little quirky. So, and this being said, when you are giving your power away, when you're like, I am not manifesting what I want, so I'm going to hire an Etsy witch, or I'm going to reach out to Mystic Witch and have her do this for me. That's like you saying, I don't have the power within me to do this, so I'm going to hire this person to do it for me. That means you are not trusting the flow of your own life, because I promise you are manifesting exactly what you need to heal. It's just you aren't realizing the situations that are coming in are exactly what you always wished for. They just are coming in the form of opportunities for you to heal, so then you can get that amazing job you want without manifesting all the drama behind it. You're gonna, in my situation, I had to realize at a certain point, and it was a huge healing point for me, and it was during one of my retreats a couple years ago, was that until I healed to the best of my ability, because the healing path takes years and years, you guys, and it's a process of peeling back, uncovering, becoming, and then you go back and you peel back more. So there's always more, right? And I had to realize at this certain point at a retreat that until I healed my mother wound, I would keep attracting the same quality of friendships and women at my retreats and savior victim people in my life until I recognized the way my mother existed in me and how those roles of this person that I knew I had toxicity with, and I was trying my best, to be able to heal things with her. And I was also trying to manifest these harmonious, beautiful female relationships that I had never been able to cultivate. And what I was seeing was the destruction of the relationship with my mother and one of my sisters, and the attracting on the other end of women that mirrored them in other relationships. And so it wasn't just about me creating boundaries here and holding those boundaries. It was about me showing up in another relationship with the same type of person and being able to exude those or execute those same boundaries and be able to walk away when I realize, like, this isn't serving me. This isn't healthy for me. I can't save them, and I am not willing to be their victim. Does that make sense? So it's important for us during this time of year, if you are in the Northern Hemisphere, that you are releasing, you're purging again and again. And we are in the final purge of this season right now before Samhain, because Samhain, we're going to be in a waxing moon, so we're going to have a new moon in a week. So we just had our last full moon of the witches year, right, in the witches wheel of the year, because after Samhain we begin a new journey forward. So until we hit Yule, we are in this liminal space. Now, when we are in this liminal space, We have the ability. So first of all, the liminal space, if you see it in human on this earth, it is the feeling you have when you stand at the edge of where the ocean meets the sand and you're looking out over the ocean. There's this feeling of peace and calm, and something actually hormonal happens to humans when we stand there. And I believe that all of that is because you're standing in a liminal space. Now, liminal space can also be in vortex areas. There's a lot of those in Sedona. Different areas around the planet have vortexes. Those vortex space, they're heightened energy because they're liminal. And if you stand at the edge of a creek, where the creek hits the water, wherever that is, that's that space between where something ends and something begins. That is liminal space. Now, as witches, really witches, not just witchy people, right? If you are a witch, you are honoring the seasonal cycles of the year. And so you are, if you are newly discovering you're a witch, you may still feel a lot of fear around this. If you are a practicing witch, usually all that fear strips away of spirits, of what people call ghosts, of those, when you walk in somewhere and you feel something, instead of it always becoming like, oh, I feel something evil here, you realize that what you're feeling a lot of times is you're entering a liminal space. And we as humans are not programmed for change to feel good. Now, witches, the more they practice honoring the wheel of the year, the more we are comfortable in those liminal spaces. Now, I believe all reality is happening now. So all the dimensions are happening right now. And when we move into that liminal space, then we are in between all of the worlds. So we're less likely to have that fear response that a lot of the people who are witchy, which, I'm not trying to be rude, but, there's a mass influx of people that really aren't practicing or honoring the craft. And they're calling themselves witches because they see stuff on TikTok and they duplicate it, or they see stuff on TikTok and they do spells. And I'm not discounting the fact that they may really want to be a witch, but to be a true practicing witch and being witchy are completely different. So I believe there's a lot of people that are on the internet selling spells that have no business doing this, and they have not only their own baggage that is moving into those spells that they're creating for you, but you're saying yes. You're putting your stamp of approval on inviting that energy into your life with that spell. So, going back to that initial thing I was talking about, like, we don't need to be hiring other people to be doing our spells. We need to be looking as witches for people to mentor us. Now, not that you need to gururize them, if that is a word, gururize. I like to make up words. You don't need to exalt them in any way. Like, I teach witchcraft classes, but I still look to a lot of other people that I believe have a lot of wisdom. They may be older than me and have life lived experience of being a witch that I don't have. And so I believe all of us witches should be looking for that more than we need to be looking for spellcasters, because it's the healing, the learning to live in right relation with the earth. Now, that isn't mean to say everyone's meant to be a witch. Not everyone's meant to be a witch. I'm not out here proselytizing the way Christians do for you to become a witch. Be whoever you're going to be. I do hope that the witches on our planet can help. Like, if you're not a witch and you're just listening to me, I hope that I can help your journey of honoring the earth, honoring the planet, and honoring your own sovereignty, because I believe there's mass healing in that. on that path and looking to teachers, people that are authentic. Like, most witches are going to have slightly different opinions on what is right and what is wrong. And, you know, I tend myself to not look at a lot of the witch talk stuff where people are like, this is the only way, because there's a million different ways. Because unfortunately, you know, I do believe like there were witches with a different name, right? All around the planet. What if you lived in Siberia, you might be called a shaman. If you lived in Egypt, you might be called a priest or priestess. There were different names. The European word, you know, in the Celtic areas was witch. The word witch, though, became like a pandemic. I always, like, this is an analogy I use because I believe the witch wound is a sickness. And that sickness spanned our entire planet. So the witch wound, that pointing the finger and saying witch and then killing people for being a witch, spanned the entire planet. So where the word witch originated from, it flew across the entire planet. So we have many different cultures now that are, you know, having what they call witch in their culture, if that makes sense. Like, one of my mentors, who is, you know, now she says she's not my mentor. She tells me not to call her my mentor, that she's my friend. But she's a Native American witch. She's a Native American woman, but she's also a witch and has practiced as a witch for a long time. And I believe we have a lot of that. So from her perspective, a lot of the craft is mixed with her Native American flair, right? But if you were to go to, you know, say Iceland, they're going to have different traditions over there than what they're going to have in Wales, right? And so there's no one way for us to say this is the craft. It's being able to resonate with who you're being taught from. Now, all of that said, I identify as a solitary witch. I don't identify as Wiccan yet. I will say a lot of my base foundational teachings are Wiccan. And the reason that is because when you study witchcraft, Wicca really is our foundational, like, I really have a lot of respect for Wicca, even though I don't want to be, I have an issue with religion, and Wicca is a religion, and I was raised in a religion, so I don't want to be raised in anything that has the ability to say this is the right way to do it and this is the wrong way to do it. I don't want anyone to have that power over me. So I've claimed that I am a solitary witch. However, a lot of my foundational teachings that I believe all of us who are identifying as witches should have comes from Wicca. And what Wicca did, and why I have so much respect for Wicca, is because the original founders of Wicca were trying to put together the pieces that we had left after the burning time that were completely attempted to be destroyed, so that the folklore, so that the pagan wisdom, and when I say pagan wisdom, I'm not referring to one specific cult or belief system. Like, pagan in today's world would mean you're Wiccan, you practice Thomism, or, you know, something like that. When I say pagan, I am meaning the belief systems that the people that came before the conversion of pagan Europe. And so I always say all witches were originally pagan. So when the conversion happened, they tried to eradicate all of the pagan wisdom. And the pagan people, even the ones that converted, really didn't want to let go of their practices. And so the church took them and morphed them into something that felt good and the people would shut up. So, you know, they took Yule and made it Christmas, right? They took the sun god and made it Jesus, and made Jesus be their savior, you know. And so, you know, that's why I always say you can't be Christian and be a witch. You know I say I don't like rules, but if there were one rule, the rule would be you can't be Christian and be a witch. You can say you're Christian and you're a witch. You can be a witch and be Christian, but you're in the broom closet, is basically what I'm stating when I say you can't be a Christian and a witch. So there should be no books on Christian witchcraft. There should be no TikTok accounts with Mormon witches, and there is. And there's TikTok accounts with Christian witches. The only reason we have any biblical BS in witchcraft, any scripture, and don't get me wrong, my grandmother, the incantation she gave me is biblical. And the reason I believe that is because for the witches to survive, same thing as the African Americans, for their religion to survive once they got over here and they were made to be baptized, they had to make their voodoo fit into the white people's world so they wouldn't be killed. So that's how we ended up with what we have, hoodoo. It's a combination of African magic, European magic, Celtic magic, and it's all morphed into one. And so, they used scripture, they used angels to be able to practice some sort of magic and not be unalived for it. And so that's why, I'm here talking to you guys, is because I'm hoping to not ostracize those calling themselves Christian witches, but to invite you to look at your history. Because, in all churches, they're saying this is the 100% truth. And that's fine if you want to be Christian, but understand that you chose to follow a cult. And the reason why all Christian churches are pointing at witches and saying cult, 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 is because they are the pot calling the kettle black. Like, look up the definition of cult. It is differentiating yourself from the other humans and following one leader. Witches do not follow one leader. Christians do. Whether that is Jesus, or it's a prophet in their church, or a bishop or a priest, they have you exonerating and idolizing these people for you to follow them. And it was a story, you guys. That's how they taught in the old days, is through myth. So they took the scrolls from the libraries of Alexandria and they made those stories fit the narrative they wanted to be able to control the people. And as long as you understand that, moving forward as a Christian, the reason why I want the Christians to understand that is that, one, if you're a witch and you're choosing to stay Christian, then you're not really living your life as a witch. You're choosing to be Christian, even though you're a witch. So you're staying in the broom closet, basically. And you're choosing that. And you shouldn't teach other people to do that because you're teaching them to be codependent. Two, you can't be both because your scripture, your teachings are, they say, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. It says it in your Bible several times. And yet there are several instances where they turn to a witch, right? For help. That's where, we're seeing all these Etsy witches doing spells and stuff, is because, and I'm one who's like, let's bring back the old ways. Not all of the old ways, because no way am I MAGA. No way am I like in that boat. But what I'm saying is don't pour the baby out with the bathwater. And that's happening, right? We're watching on social media right now, the witch be stripped down and right in front of our eyes, and lose the potency of the word across the board because witch talk is so toxic. Because, I don't know any other way. I've been saying this for weeks now. As I look at witch talk more and more, I'm like, maybe I need to identify as Wiccan, because it's almost like I realize why the people of old thought there needed to be structure, because without structure, it leaves people to interpret things and share them and teach them when they're not true. So it's like, how do we solidify what is the foundational teachings of witchcraft when we're identifying as a solitary witch who is not claiming to be Wiccan? Then that means you're just choosing to believe what Harmony or Mystic Witch or, Stella Witch of the Moon or Bree Witch or Uncle Birch or anybody else out there is telling you, or Christian Day or any of these people that the witches know their names. It's like, who, and all of those people I think are Wiccan that I just mentioned, maybe. I'm not sure if Bree Witch identifies as Wiccan, but Stella, Witch of the Moon, does not identify as Wiccan. She's kind of like me. She's solitary, but, a lot of her foundational teachings are Wiccan. And even if your foundational teachings are Wiccan, they date further back than Wicca, because Wicca tried to they did compile it, I shouldn't say they tried, they compiled the wisdom they believed to be the craft and the magic. And yeah, actually I sell these hats from Stella. Stella and I are, good friends, good sisters. We are soul sisters. So anyway, you can find my hat in my apothecary, or hers, both of ours, I should say. So I believe that we're figuring out how to be right now. Ultimately, that's why I say, like, the path needs to be healing. It needs to not be hiring people to do spell work for you. The path needs to be focused on healing and on claiming your sovereignty. So, I do believe Wicca is one of the only paths that has it has the most sovereignty in it. The thing that I don't like about Wicca is that, you usually have a book of shadows that is the book you follow from your particular coven, and there's a high priest and a high priestess. And, I know I'm considered the high priestess of, my coven and of my retreat covens. And, but I want you all to know, like, even when I show up in those roles, that one of the first things I say at every retreat is that I'm representing the high priestess. I'm playing that role right now, but in no way, shape, or form am I above you, beyond you, any better than you. And I don't want people bowing to me. I don't want any of that. I'm here to guide you through this practice, but it's fine that I am considered the high priestess, because there always needs to be somebody leading, but I don't want anyone to think that makes me above you, because I believe we're all coming home to different aspects of ourselves. There's a high priest and a high priestess in all of us. That's like the concept of maiden, mother, crone. Like, even if you're in a man's body, the male, the mother, the crone lives within you too. We all have that masculine and that feminine within us that's attempting to be balanced on this planet that has been masculine dominant for so long. So, honestly, I can tell you who I think a witch is. I can tell you who I believe is, a good teachers out there. But really, each of our path is unique. We've all had a different past, and we're all healing from something different. I have a lot of religious trauma. I work with specifically women, and I don't take on male clients, because my path, when I was initiated as a priestess, I took an oath to be in service of the goddess. So as a witch, witchcraft has always in its roots been goddess worship. Now, I don't say I worship anyone, I honor. So I consider my path to be one of honoring the creator, the source, as female, as goddess. I do believe there is a consort to the goddess, right? But, that's what I believe. Doesn't mean all witches believe that, right? Some witches believe that whatever they want. They believe, and they call it the Lord and the Lady a lot in Wicca. I don't usually use the terms the Lord and the Lady, and I focus mostly on the feminine and the goddess, because I was raised for the first 21 years of my life in a Mormon Christian, like masculine, you look to the men know all, the patriarch of the home, I've had enough of that, and I've been harmed enough by that. And that's part of why, my trauma, the sexual trauma that I have endured in family and in church, and in life, leads me to my mission and my oath to work with women. And I know that the women that are drawn to work with me will all have those similar wounds, because my wisdom and life lived experience, or religious wounds, and wisdom is different than knowledge, right? Knowledge is what you can gain by going to school for something, taking a class in something. The wisdom that we gain is when we open up our channel to receive the lessons learned through all the hardships that we've endured since we were a child. So for myself, as a guide of witchcraft, I know people look at me as a teacher. I have a hard time labeling myself with one of those things, because I just do. So anyway, a lot of what I share is that it's wisdom. Like, I've taken all the classes and everything. I've had so many little certifications in a million different little things. And I've stopped leading with all those certifications, because I realize where I'm impacting is by sharing what I've learned through my life lived experience. And I believe that all of us are supposed to be coming from that place of sharing that life lived wisdom. But also, there is this foundation underneath me of the craft of being a witch that is very solid and firm. And that is where I found, that is, in that healing path of sovereignty, I found in witchcraft, in honoring myself as a witch. And again, a lot of those teachings, not all of them, a lot of them are Wiccan based. Now, given that I had a Native American mentor, there is a lot of stuff that I, have to ask myself and research sometimes. Is what she was teaching me, is that Native American or is that witchcraft? Because she made a huge mark on my path. And she did not come into my path until it was when I opened my boutique. So in 2017. So I had several other teachers before her that, one was from Peru, and one was a medium who received her gifts from, she believes, an alien encounter. And, so these people, they just showed up in my life, and they didn't show up and say, I'm a medium and I know, somebody on the other side sent me to you. It was me taking the call, me recognizing the synchronicities. So that's, goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning, about during this time at Samhain, when the veils are thin, like, you may not be thinking you're connecting with your ancestors or your spirit guides, but you probably are if you just open up to the synchronicities that are happening right now. There's no coincidences right now. This time of year where we're like, I believe it's like, it really gets strong for me around Mabon, and it goes until Yule, even a little after Yule, like into almost to Imbolc, I would say. So from like Mabon to Imbolc, which is not an even, it would be Mabon to Ostara, but for me, that's how I feel it in my body. I don't know how you feel it in your body, but that's when the veil feels thinnest. Most thinnest, though, Mabon to Yule for me. And up until like the first week of January, I would say. But I'm very body aware. A lot of my, as, identifying as feminine, I really have had to learn trusting my body's wisdom and trusting what it's telling me. So just because I experienced the veils being thin from Mabon to the first week of January, it might be different for you. It might be Mabon to Ostara for you. And for me, it's really strong right now. So those synchronicities that are happening right now are guided by our spirit guides. They're guided by our ancestors. So we really need to trust that, because my teachers, my guides, my mentors, my first guide was that medium, Gertie. She still lives in town here. She's this little old lady. I love her so much. She gave me this gift recently. She was gonna give it to me when she was in the hospital with COVID, and she thought she was dying, and she left me a message. I didn't get the message. Told me to come to her house and get this item, and because she thought she was gonna die, and I didn't come. Well, I didn't get the message, and I was calling and checking on her, but I didn't get that message and come over. So she was kind of upset with me for a little while, but it was like back in 2006, 7, she came into my life. And the way I found her was someone had given me a book that I already had. It was To Ride a Silver Broomstick. And it was this time of year. And somebody gave it to my husband, who knew I was a witch, and said, your wife might like this. And I was like, oh, I had this book. Anyway, one day my sister calls me and says, can I have that spell for broom that you use, for the broom at your front door? And I was like, sure. I think I got it out of this book originally. And so I grabbed that book and I'm flipping through it. And during that time, I had been asking in my spell work, like, I want a teacher. I want a guide. I want to seek a medium, someone who can help me, because I knew I had, psychic abilities, mediumship abilities. I just didn't know what to do with them. Out falls this piece of paper on this book that says, local psychic, Gertie Miles. And it has her phone number. And I'm like, what the heck? And so I call the number and I'm like, I just found your number on a piece of paper that fell out of a book. And I went and had a reading with her. And so that's what I'm talking about, you guys. Like, follow those little breadcrumbs that whoever it is on the other side is leaving for you. Maybe it's your higher self and working with your soul. And maybe it's an ancestor, maybe it's a spirit guide, but they're trying to leave breadcrumbs for you. They're trying to answer the call. It's just a lot of times we're like, I want a signier sign. Okay, perfect example of this. The other night we went out, it was my husband's birthday, and we go downtown. We live in this town where there's like this little Norman Rockwell looking square, and around the square are all these little shops and all these little bars. Very Christian town. Kind of hard to find a small town that isn't. Anyway, so I stay home most of the time. I don't go out a lot. And it's his birthday, and actually the Native American witch I'm telling you about, her husband plays the guitar and sings some all around town at these different bars. And she had told me, you guys should come out, like Bob's playing. And so we went out, and we're driving, right? We're driving around the square. We're looking for a parking place, and it's raining, pouring rain, and we can't find a parking place. And I always do this when we go to the grocery store, and I'm like, I'll call the parking angels. And every time I say I call the parking angels, like, parking place comes up right away. And and what's funny about that is I don't work with any angels, but for whatever reason, I believe there's a parking angel. And so we're driving around the square, and my husband's like, I'm just gonna drop you off so you don't get soaked, and I'll park and run. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'll call the parking angels. So we come around the square, and I'm like, stop, right? And he's like, there's no parking places. And he's kind of rolling, and then we go past this van where he couldn't see around, and there's someone pulling out. And he's like, they're not pulling out, they're pulling in. And so he passes that spot, and the person backs out. And I was like, see, that was the parking angel. So we turn the corner, and we're going up, and I'm like, somebody's taillights are on, they're pulling out, stop. And he's like, no, they're not. And I'm like, Jason, stop. And he's like, no, Harmony, they are pulling in. They just have their foot on their brake. Again, we pass them, and he's like, they back out. And he's like, I'm like, I can't believe. He's like, so where's your parking angels now? And I'm like, Jason, how many spots do you need the parking angels to open up for you? And sorry, I always have to put these stupid puzzle pieces together. And so then he's like, okay, I'm calling on the parking angels this time. And so we go around, and this time we come around and there is somebody pulling out of the spot that is like right in front of the space. And he's like, my parking angels are better than your parking angels. Anyway, the point is that how many times do you need spirit to smack you upside the head with the sign? You can't just keep asking for signier signs every time you're given the sign, because sometimes the lesson is to just accept that what you are getting is the sign. It's you feeling you are worthy for that sign. That's what it is. Do you feel you are worthy? You know, someone said that to me shortly after my grandmother died. It was like 3 days after I went to a conference, and it was a mediumship. It was called Love from the Other Side. And the woman who was teaching was, you know, doing mediumship readings. When you went in, you put your name on a paper in a box, and then she pulled your name out and called you up. I was the first one to be called, and I wasn't even gonna go to this because I was so emotionally distraught over losing my grandma. I didn't feel like I was in the right headspace to be there, but they called my name and I go up there, and I like can't even talk to her because I mean, it was just 3 days prior. So I was like choked up even being called up there. Like, is my grandma, like, she's coming through really quick right now. And one of the messages this woman gave me was about red glass. And my grandma had these red glass, it looked like that antique red glass. It was a shoe. And the last time I had seen her at her house, she was like, I was looking at that and I was like, you know, these pieces of glass always remind me of you, Grandma. And she's like, you should take it. I don't need it. You should take it. And I was like, I'm not taking your decorations out of your house. Anyway, this woman says, your grandma's saying something about red glass. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, there was a red shoe. I wanted to take it and I didn't. And she was like, you did not. She's telling you next time you receive the sign to remember that you are worthy of receiving that sign. And since then, I have really been like, she's shown up in signs that have been so freaking palpable. It's unbelievable. And I remember, and every single time I get one of those moments, to not question them and to remember that I am worthy. Because what that does for you, I have found through doing that, is it opens up the doorway for more signs to come in and for other spirits and ancestors to communicate with you. So, you know, I'll leave you with that little nugget on, you know, trusting what comes in, because I know a lot of people are looking for mentors as witches, and they're like actively looking for it, right? Sometimes you need to stop looking and just let it come to you. Do you guys hear my cat meowing? Oh. This is Roxy. She's gonna be 19 years old in January, and my sweet baby was just diagnosed with lymphoma on Friday. She had another type of cancer, and she's definitely had 9 lives. I think her and I have manifested healing in her so many times. They call her the miracle cat at the vet. And, you know, the vet says this is probably her time is coming, and I feel her time is coming. Yeah, I feel her time is coming this time, and there's not going to be a bunch of mass heroic efforts, because I believe she's telling me she doesn't want that. That's hard, you know, but she has so much lymphoma in her belly that she has to eat every 2 hours. So we've been struggling with this for a while. She meows every 2 hours and is hungry. And I guess that's because the tumors in her belly are smashing her belly. So when she does eat, she can only eat wet food. And and her stomach's like smashed, so she can only eat a little bit at a time. So we're just gonna, until her quality of life gets bad, we're gonna let her keep going, and I'm just gonna keep feeding her every 2 hours. And it's cancer, it's tumors in her. It's like her kidney has turned into a tumor of cancer to where it doesn't even look like a kidney. Same thing with her spleen. But yeah, about a year ago, she was always on my live. She was always sitting in here with me, and she hasn't been lately, but today she just walked in. So she must have wanted to say hello to you guys. I've had a rough year. I lost my soul dog, one of my babies, back in June, and I know Roxy doesn't want me to have to endure that. Do you? Yeah. But I know she'll be here with me after. Yeah. We're always going through stuff, right? It is hard to say goodbye to our fur babies. She has one of those looks, she's funny. She's always tried to bite the vet, and she'll hiss at them, and they still love her and are sweet to her. She's a spicy girl, huh? She definitely has been part of my healing journey, though, and I believe that, she has taken on a lot of energy for me in my path. So I'm super grateful for her. The first time she got sick, she was only 8 months old, and there's an uncle that molested me as a child, and that uncle, I'd never told anyone at this point. I had told my mom several little clues, like that I thought it was him. Like everybody knew I thought it was him, but I didn't like come out and say it, if that makes sense. Anyway, when she was 8 months old, I was at a friend's wedding, and my mom was in Hawaii, and I got a phone call from my mom that my uncle had a heart attack and died in his driveway, and they brought him back, and they brought him to Las Vegas. And my mom could not get there, and I had to go there. And anyway, I went there, and the decision to be made was he was on a ventilator, and they told me if I pulled the plug, he would die, and if I didn't pull the plug, they would take him into surgery and he would live. And my mom was basically leaving that decision up to me. And this triggered a lot of shit in me. I don't believe I ever should have been put in that situation, but for whatever reason, I put my sovereign journey, had that come in. And anyway, my, Spirit always gives you a rock during that. My grandfather on my dad's side came out, and looking back, it's funny because he was annoying me. This was like in 2012. Dog just scared the shit out of me. So he came out, and he was like, he got me a hotel room because I was just sleeping in the hospital. Like, we didn't have a lot of money at that time. We were getting married coming up soon, and yeah, it was a whole thing. My husband's ex was suing him. It was a disaster shit show of a time. Anyway, and so my grandpa comes out, and he sleeps in his truck, puts me in a hotel room, and I'm just like, he's always trying to make me laugh and stuff, and at the time I was just annoyed, and looking back, I'm like, he came to be my rock. Anyway, because Jason went home and he said, the cats are doing good, everything's fine. Well, anyway, all of that, I end up not choosing not to pull the plug. No, I chose to pull the plug. We pulled the plug, and he lived. And I'm like, I thought you said he was going to die if we pulled the plug. And then because he didn't die within 48 hours, they then did surgery and he lived. So it was a whole thing in my life. So I go home and I'm completely triggered from being around my uncles, having to make that decision, blah, blah, blah. We're getting sued, all of these things. And I'm getting married in 2 weeks. And I come home, and Roxy is laying in the middle of my bathroom, sprawled out, and will not move. And that was the first time we thought she was gonna die, and she was only 8 months old. And to this day, they never figured out what was wrong with her. She had 3 blood transfusions. They still have no idea what that was. They just kept giving her blood transfusions, which completely, racked up more debt. And anyway, she lived, but she also had a rare form of cancer that they told me after they did, the choice was put her to sleep or do the surgery, and she would most likely, pass. And then after the surgery, they sent the tumor in, and they're like, yeah, there's only a 1% chance she'll live a year. So basically she was going to pass. And that was 8 years ago. So there's been multiple times like this. That's why they call her the miracle cat, because she just keeps living. So I also know, even though she was diagnosed with lymphoma, you never know what will happen with Roxy, because her and I have this path that's like interlinked. And I do believe that that initial, when she had to have the blood transfusion, was I believe she was taking on something for me and clearing it, because after all that happened, it was shortly after that I was no longer willing to go and care for someone who had harmed me as a child, which was the beginning of the end of my relationship with my mom. Because she just lives in a different reality where family is family no matter what. And I realized to heal, I needed to not be around that man. But the connection between Roxy being sick while I was out of town, that sick to where she was almost dead, it's every time she has gotten sick, there's been something massive going on with me. So, look around at those animals that are in your home, because they really are healers, you guys. They are the silent healers in your house that they get, so very little attention. They're in your life for a reason. So, again, she hasn't been on my lives in a while, and I just got this news on Friday about her. And since I got the news, she has been glued to my hip, sleeping with me. It's like she knows I'm processing, that her time is coming. And so she's staying near me to help me process that. And she's sitting here just purring on my lap. Our animals, they deserve a lot more love and attention than they get, because they're doing stuff for us that we don't even acknowledge. Anyway, how many likes do we have? It's 11:30 and we have 70K. Am I seeing that right? We always shoot for at least 100K hearts before I cast the circle. And I cast an energetic circle, same but different than the circles we cast when we do spell work. Usually you see, the circles that I create with my retreat covens in my videos. If you haven't followed me, you guys go follow me. And those circles are for some sort of ceremony, rite, or spell work that is being done. You see the candles or the brooms in a circle, different objects, some sort of altar in the center. That's the typical circle we see. The circle I cast here is kind of a mirror of that, but it's cast to be an energetic circle for all who are open to receive. And what that does is we call a deity in each of the 8 directions, most commonly witches use 4, I use 8. And I do that to create a energy of all these different archetype deities that I work with. And so we open the circle on an energetic level for all who are open to receive. So it creates a sacred portal, and I lift it up to the 7th and 8th plane of consciousness so that you are in this transcendent space until you lay your head down to sleep. Now, the way I cast the circle is when you lay your head down to sleep, you will the circle will be open, but it will never be broken. And the transcendent wisdom that you received by being in this space, the seventh and eighth plane consciousness, is that it will be embodied after that. So the week ahead, you'll be moving through whatever spirit brought in for the hours that that circle was cast around you. Now, to receive that circle, you would take part in the casting of it, meaning you're sitting in a space of meditation. And it's like I'm guiding you through a meditation. And all you have to do is sit with your chakras, your energetic points all in a line, meaning from sit bone to crown, you're in a nice long line. So if you're laying down, you're not curled up in a ball. If you're sitting in a chair, you're nice and long from sit bone to crown of head. And you just close your eyes, and then when I say bless us as I call your name, I'll say a deity's name like Hecate, and then I invite you to say it with me out loud 2 more times. And that's all you have to do, other than typing yes, I accept, I receive in the chat when we hit 100K likes. So when we hit 100K likes, you are welcome to say that you accept and you receive, and then we'll move into that space of circle casting. But is there anything else that you guys want to chat about while we're letting the likes get to that place of where they're going to be for us to cast our circle? What if we really don't work with deities? That's okay. It's okay if you don't work with deities. You can still take part in this. You know, it may be the first time. You know, a lot of people believe deities are actual people. And that's fine if that's what you believe. And I believe some of the deities were actual people. I believe some of the deities are rooted in someone that actually was a real person, but I consider them all archetype images for us to learn lessons from. So they each of those deities embody an aspect of us, and that's why they call to us. So, you know, if a deity is calling to you, it's because part of their energy, their persona exists within you, and maybe you're not embodying those aspects yet. And so that's why they're showing up. So maybe by being part of this circle casting, you'll realize that one of these deities that I work with, because there's 8 I work with really strongly, and I call them in my circle. And so by calling them in, you can just notice, like, do one of these deities really resonate with me? At different points in my life, I work with different deities for different reasons. You know, Kuan Yin and Mother Mary were really strong for me when I was doing inner child work. And Mother Mary to me does not belong to the Christian church. I believe the Christian church stole these people, and like Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, and Jesus, and made them their, like, you know, top 3 in their cult. And so now everybody thinks that they own their energies, when in all actuality, I believe Jesus, Mother Mary, and Mary Magdalene are probably rolling over in their grave at what people have done to their identity and the life that they lived. And I believe that's why a lot of us now, even as witches, are like, hey, we're not Christian. But I do believe Jesus was a person that walked this earth, and I believe he was a witch. I don't believe he was my savior. He was nobody's savior. That is the most codependent thing ever. He may have been an oracle, you know, that's what a witch originally was. I believe Mary Magdalene was his wife. Do you mind explaining the word liminal a little further? Liminal to me is being in between the worlds. So as a witch, you know, some witches call the other world the Summerland. Some of them will still call it heaven, but most witches don't believe in heaven and hell because those are concepts for the church. But there is, you know, our body goes back to the earth, right? So another liminal space, for example, I already gave you the ones of standing where the ocean meets the water. It's where something ends and something begins. One thing ends and another begins, right? So you're in a liminal space when you are with someone that is dying. So if you've ever sat at the bedside of someone that is passing, there is a very liminal presence there in that moment, because that life is ending and they're beginning a new life in spirit form somewhere else, and their body is returning to the earth. So they're in that space of transition, right? So cemeteries are considered liminal as well. And that's why witches, you'll see them doing a lot of work in the cemetery, is because it's a space where the body is returned to the earth. So it's a place of transformation, right? Now, in modern days, in cemeteries, we aren't just burying bodies in the earth, just, putting them in sheets or blankets and burying them and their bodies actually returning to the earth. We actually put them in boxes and put them in the earth, which, I understand why they do that. However, I really think it's more natural for a body to return and decompose and become part of the earth. And I believe the practices around that in years to come, maybe not in my life, I don't know. I think it is starting in some ways, that will be returned to. There's so many things that the earth does not get that it used to get. And one of those things is the body being returned to the earth. That brings our bodies decomposing in the earth, actually brings nutrients to the earth. That's the way the ancestors are left here on this earth. But even if you are, cremated and your ashes scattered, you're going back to the earth. Anyway, so a cemetery is a liminal space because it's a space of transformation. It's where one thing is becoming another thing. Yay! 100K likes. So we'll move into that casting of the circle here in just a minute. So witches are always working in a liminal space. So when you cast the circle, you are moving yourself intentionally into a liminal space. That's part of what the casting of the circle is doing for spell work. You're moving between the worlds where transformation takes place. That's why, it's important that you are, when you are doing spell work, you're attracting to you all types of energies. And so you cast the circle for protection, yes, but it also moves you into this liminal space where you're neither here nor there. And you're in the in-between, per se. So, this is my description of a liminal space. And the liminal space, so if you believe all time is happening now, and this is just my belief system, I know not all witches believe this, but I believe all time is happening now. And so if all time is happening now, then life, all dimensions are like a TV. So imagine this life as a TV, and there are 1,000 channels on this TV, right? But you're watching one channel, and you're watching, I don't know what you're watching. This is us. And that's what you're watching, right? We right now are watching October 12th, 2025. And so that's the channel we're on. But there are a million other channels simultaneously happening right now, right here. So those of us that are mediums can more easily slip in and out of those dimensions, listening, hearing, using our senses, whether it's feeling, knowing, whatever clair you work with. That is you being able to tap into those other dimensional realities and connect the other spirits and the other realities. Whether you are experiencing past life wisdom or you're experiencing the soul being in that space of the in-between, where they're in a place of healing, of deciding what the next plan for your incarnation will be. Will you return to earth again? Won't you? So as witches, we work with the in-between energy. We work with that liminal energy. So when you consciously bring yourself into that liminal energy, you can communicate with the spirits really easily. The thing is that we're so on this reality, so on this channel, and we believe heaven is up here and hell is down here. And even if you don't believe that, most people are programmed to think hell is up here and heaven's down here, or flip it, that they can't even imagine all time happening now. More people are opening up to that, though, I do believe. But it's also allowing yourself to get rid of that idea that your soul floats up into space, which is called that in-between space, the Summerland. And there is an in-between where your soul is like, taking stock of what happened in this life, what karmic lessons you'll play out in the next life. That's why I believe, a lot of my teachings are rooted in the legacy of love. Like, that's my mission, I guess. People have always asked me, as I've had, I would say, a spiritual business since I opened my boutique. So that was like 2017. And that mission has always been to make the legacy of love that I leave behind after this incarnation be an imprint that lasts beyond me. It's not necessarily that I last, harmony lasts, but the imprint, the work that I do on this planet is making a lasting, energetic legacy of love. And that's why it's so important to me. Authenticity, integrity, these are of the utmost importance, that no matter where I am at, I show up as who I am and what is happening for me now. I'm not one of those teachers that shows up like I know all and everything is perfect in my life. Like, I was raised in a household like that, where everything was about the show that was put on, and that your pretty little family walked in with every hairs and bows and everybody acting like everybody was perfect. And I don't do that now. If I'm having a hard day, if I'm crying because my cat's sick, that's what you're gonna get on your live. If I also am not dumping my shit on you. I try not to dump my shit on anybody on here, but I also try to be real with what is going on for me, because like I said earlier, I might be a high priestess, but I'm in the same place as you guys. Like, we're all learning and we're all growing. And so from my understanding right now, that is what a liminal space is. It's a space of transformation. And in that space of transformation, we're neither here nor there. But in this life, we've been programmed so hardcore that this is it. And when we die, like, if you didn't do it right, you're going to suffer forever. And that's just not the way that it is. Like, you don't suffer because God is judging you or Jesus is judging you. I believe on the other side, any pain you feel will be for, those things we inflicted on other people. And I believe that because, we all have mediumship abilities. I feel that a lot from people on the other side, that there is remorse on the other side for the lessons that they came here to learn that maybe they didn't get right, where they could have done better, where, that's why, we have these deities like Ma'at. She's an Egyptian deity, and she stands with one wing in and one wing out, representing the scales of balance. And she is said to meet you at the end of life in some, folklore, in Egyptian folklore, I guess you'd call it. And she is weighing your heart against a feather. And if your heart is heavier than that feather at the end of your life, then like you're sent to this other being that ate your heart or something like that, so that you can return to the other side pure and clean and unburdened. Well, the only way that we can do that is living our life to the best of our ability, most authentically as we can in every single moment, and when we realize that we could have done better somewhere, by going to that person, if we can, and saying, I'm sorry for the pain I inflicted on you. You know, that's when I believe apologies actually help us heal, is when the person just shows up and apologizes. But when we go and ask for an apology or blame or tell someone they're wrong, that's not healing us. That's why I say we need to do the healing work on our own. But you know, that is the ultimate goal, is to leave this life, you know, with your heart looking back, that knowing there were times that you could have done better, but giving yourself the grace of knowing that you always did the best you could at any given moment with the wisdom that you had gained until that moment. Because when I did some shitty things in the past, I didn't know what I know now. And so the only thing I can do now is try to make that right. And some people are available for me to make amends with, and some people aren't. And the ones that aren't, I just have to work on forgiving myself for, you know, for actually hating myself for doing those things. Because in your healing journey, you come to a point where you realize you would have never done those shitty things. It wasn't only that you didn't have more wisdom, it's that you wouldn't have done the shitty things had the shitty things not happened to you. It was just that you hadn't had the opportunity to heal. So you were doing the best thing you could to get by. And so that's part of the healing journey too. You know, all of my witch classes are rooted in this concept of healing and connecting to the earth, because being a witch is earth-based magic. And healing so you can come be connected to the earth and then open to that transcendent wisdom that is from the liminal spaces. Because when you can enter the liminal spaces, you can begin to see the other lives you lived, and then you take wisdom and lessons from those other lives you've lived, and also you're open to the other spirits on the other side that are willing to communicate with you, and you learn from them. But it's not about staying up and out in that transcendent space. It's about bringing that wisdom that you find in the liminal space, in the circle where you're doing spell work, in the circle with your sisters or your sisters and your brothers, and you take that wisdom and you embody it in your everyday life. So the liminal is, yes, it's very like, ooh, what is that? But actually it's a place to learn. That's the place you learn. And then you actually take what you learned and do something with it in this season. That's what fall's about. It's about embodiment. It's about the descent. And us as humans, we don't want change. We want everything solid because it feels safe. And ultimately, really, we've only been programmed to believe that, because our natural state is ever changing, like the wheel of the year. So right now you are embodying everything that you learned in the season before. And anytime you're in a circle, such as the one we're going to cast here in a few minutes, or the ones you cast for ceremony or ritual or spell work, you're moving yourself intentionally into a liminal space where you can absorb that wisdom. But it's one thing to open yourself up to that channel and stay in this woo-woo place and float off the earth all the time. That's where you're getting all these ungrounded teachings. You need to come down and into your body. And the thing is that our bodies have proven to be unsafe on this earth for a really long time. So part of the healing is relearning that our bodies are a safe space to be, because now we are sovereign being. And we are choosing that we will be safe, that we will protect ourselves, that we will create the boundaries we need. I guess when you ask, usually us, any type of, shaman or medicine person or witch, high priest or priestess, like it's hard to do just a little answer for a question. And that's why I have a hard time making little videos. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to say in 1 minute. This is what I'm going to say in 3 minutes. And it's like, the answer is very vast and it takes a while. It's hard to get the answer out there in just 3 minutes or a minute. And usually it's quite long-winded because the answer is woven into the fabric of our beings. So I hope that makes you understand, or helps you understand a little bit more, the liminal space of transcendence. It's a space you're entering in meditation. And a lot of times we're in some sort of, I don't want to call it transcendent space, but we're in the head. I guess that's where we're living, is in the head. And then most of us, when we join the spiritual path of whatever path, we kind of go into transcendence, and then we think we've arrived. And it's this awakening that causes complete spiritual psychosis, when you cannot feel safe in your body and come back down and into your body with that information. So, that's why I show up to teach, is because in my path, that's what happened. And that I kind of had to learn this on my own, that the journey of learning to be safe in my body, to learn that my body held all of the trauma, the energetic trauma lasting in different areas of my body that, ended up as disease later in life, whether, everything is happening in life to get us to acknowledge our body and what our body's doing for us. And, even if it's, you trip and fall and you break your hip, that's still your body trying to, your higher self orchestrating something that you don't want. You want that broken hip, right? You're like, fuck that, I don't want that broken hip. But through having that broken hip, you are paying so much attention to the energetic wound in your hip that you are actually healing that. So even the accident was orchestrated to help you heal your lineage of something that you came to free them of. You came to be that pattern breaker. I have one of the muscle dystrophies. It's a neurological, neuromuscular disease. So I am really in my life for my family, working on healing the nervous system from trauma, healing the physical body from carrying too much, holding too much. And so, when you join a lot of my classes, they're always going to be rooted in that healing path, taking those steps to acknowledging, the child within you. And I believe today in our meditation that we're going to go into now, we are going to we're going to cast that circle, but we're also going to bring in our inner child, because I believe that we've been talking a lot about that today. And so he or she they need to come in today while we're casting this circle, because they have some things they want to share with you. And, I want to remind each and every one of you, no matter what you're going through in your life, what your ailments are, whether it be from circumstances outside of you where something happened that, there's things happening to your body that you can't have control, or it's a, fibromyalgia, autoimmune disease, or a disease of some sort, or an injury of some sort that keeps coming back. I want to acknowledge that if you're here listening, that you are the pattern breaker in your family. And this is such a cliche. It's becoming almost a bullshit thing to say, because so many people are out there, I'm the pattern breaker in my family. It almost makes me cringe. But it's like, if you're here listening to me, the pattern breakers are the ones that are willing to do that hard work, to live with those wounds, to see to move through your life with the pain, with the injury, with the whatever has been inflicted on you, and to show up in this radiant, sovereign light with your compassion shining through your eyes, to show the world that it is possible to be different, to be that shining light. Being the pattern breaker is doing the shadow work. It doesn't mean you're being an asshole. And I guess that's what I'm seeing, is a lot of people are like coming out and like, fuck this and fuck that, and I'm the pattern breaker. And it's like, if you were really the pattern breaker, and maybe you are, you're not there yet, there is a breaking down to where you go into the underworld journey and you are feeling it all, and it feels like it is gonna crush you. And you learn to honor your sovereign path in every single step, every single way. You trust it. You trust your body's wisdom, even if the world is telling you this is broken. They tell me my muscles are deteriorating. It's like, I am strong. I understand. My journey is to acknowledge when I am not strong, and to not carry what is not mine to carry, and to release it. And, each one of us have an energetic lesson in what our physical journeys are providing us. So, I am just acknowledging you all, because if you're listening to me, I know you've got a heavy path, a burden to bear, that whether I know what it is or not, I know you wouldn't be here if it wasn't heavy like mine, and that you're trying to the best of your ability to remain in love, to remain in light, and to also go into the shadows when you are called to go into the shadows, and to still love yourself through those shadows. And that's where we're at right now, is releasing and purging before we start the new wheel of the year. And the witch's new year is Samhain. That's why New Year's on January 1st feels so weird. To me, it feels more like New Year's, either on Ostara at the astrological New Year, or at Samhain. And so right now it's normal if you're feeling that heavy, like, what's happening? Like, I'm going into the dark night of the soul. It's okay. Don't feel heavy about it. Don't judge it as heavy. Be okay with the heavy. Be with the heavy. Love yourself for where you are at. So let's go ahead and cast our circle. If all of you who are going to join us casting the circle can find a quiet space where you will be undisturbed, close your eyes. I want you to keep a nice long straight spine from root to crown of head. So if you lie down, lie flat on your back. If you're sitting up, that's fine too. And I'll just have you close your eyes. When I say the deities' names, please say them with me twice. I will get a drink of water, Marjorie. Thank you for the reminder. Roxy, you're just gonna stay right here. Everyone, if you are going to be a part of this circle casting, I invite you to tap in the chat, right in the chat. I accept, I receive. I already see a few of you doing it. I accept, I receive, I am open to receive. Thank you. Yes, whatever it is, I receive, I claim this. Yes. Otherwise, you can just listen if you're curious. But if you are receiving this for you, please tap that, state it out loud, so that energetically you are agreeing to be in this space. And then when you go to sleep tonight, this energetic space will open up, and you will be moving through that period of embodiment throughout the week of what you gained being in that liminal space. But ultimately, we are in a liminal space right now, even though I'm kind of lifting us up in that liminal space to have higher perspective. So that's what it means to be in the 7th and 8th plane consciousness. I'm going to squish my cat out of the room so she doesn't meow the entire time. Go on in, Daisy. All right, I'll invite you all to close your eyes and begin to settle your breath, allowing each breath to bring you further into your body. If my music is too loud, will someone let me know before I begin? So letting the rise and the fall, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Closing your eyes And letting the rise and the fall of your breath bring you more further into your body, into your center. Taking very intentional breaths in this moment. Begin to feel your body rising and lowering. So every inhale kind of lifts you, expands your chest, expands your entire being. And every exhale, you surrender further into the earth. And you begin to do this so many times that you begin to notice that your breathing is actually in sync with the breath of the earth. You begin to feel our Earth Mother's heartbeat beating in rhythm with yours. Feeling the rise and the fall of the breath. Feeling yourself become one with the earth. Noticing the weight of your body surrender into the earth beneath you. As she rises up to support you, to cradle you, you are held in this very moment by her endless hands and arms that reach through the soil's edge and become one with you. Your breath of life is allowing you to be both here and there, fully in your body, fully connected to your soul, connected to your source and creator. As I call forth concentric circles of light to surround you now, spiraling endless circles of light, noticing the color of these lights individually without judging them, witnessing them, watching them outside of you create a safe space around you, noticing yourself within this sacred circle lying down. Your arms are stretched out wide and they almost touch these lights. Noticing what color these lights are for you. Noticing that your outstretched legs, your toes are almost touching the bottom of the circle. And as you begin to rise above this sacred circle and look down upon yourself, you notice you appear to be the shape of a pentacle. The body, the five-pointed star, and the concentric circles of light, the circle around the pentagram. In this space, you are whole. You are protected. Taking a deep inhale through your nose, sealing your lips, noticing the breath enter every part of your body, bring it all the way to your fingertips, to the toes, to the hips, and then soften your shoulders at the top of the breath, soften your lower back, hold, hold, hold. Parting your lips and audibly let go. Pressing all of the air out of your body using the constriction of your abdomen. And when you're empty of breath, pause and notice what it feels like to be empty. And then seal your lips. Take a deep, quick inhale through the nose. Fill the whole body up, soften the shoulders, soften the legs, the feet, the arms, open your mouth, audible exhale. Again, squeezing all the breath out of your body till you can't take any more breath, and then notice how you feel when you're empty. Seal the lips, slow inhale through the nose. Fill up, fill up, fill up. Hold at the top, take in one more sip. One more sip. Soften everything. Relax into the space of being full of life. Part your lips and audibly let go. The bottom of the breath, seal your lips and allow your breath to reset to a nice natural rhythm and pace for your well-being. Noticing if you can feel your body, where your body touches the earth or the seat or the bed or the couch beneath you. Continuing to feel held by the Earth Mother below you and the circles of light around you. As I call forth the guardians of the watchtowers of the north, south, east, and west. Guardian of the north, keeper of earth, I invoke the elements and the spirits of earth. Keeper of the keys, keeper of the crossroads, mother of witches, we call your underworld journey spirit forth, clearing the way of our physical bodies, allowing the energy of the previous year that does not serve us to fall away upon our command now. Bless us as we call your name, Hecate, Hecate, Hecate. Guardian of the northeast, keeper of the rising sun, she who holds the healing waters within the palms of her hands. She sits by the water's edge, offering to all who cross her path the healing waters of the west to strip away what no longer serves them, to gently wash away all that you are releasing through the power of her light and love. Bless us as we call your name, Bridget, Bridget, Bridget. Guardian of the east, keeper of air, I invoke the spirits and the elements of air. She of 10,000 spells, she of 10,000 names. Priestess of priestesses, angel among the living, shapeshifter, reminding us that we each have what appears to be angelic wings that move through the grace of the wind, of the air, allowing yourself to expand your wings as she expands hers. Bless us as we call your name, Isis, Isis, Isis. Guardian of the southeast, keeper of sovereignty, she who shows us the way to using our voice, this gift of the vibrational frequency that moves through us, expressing us and our will. She reminds of this through the songs of birds, through the chomping hoofs of horses, of the buffalo as they run by, the feeling of sound that shifts all. She who sings the songs of the Divine Mother through the sacred humming and the buzzing of bees. She who stands in her power and stops for no one, unless she chooses to. She reminds you to live your truth, to walk your path, unswayed by what everyone else needs, and in this time to give you what you need. And if that means you keep riding your horse beyond all the calls of the do's and the to-do list, that you do so. Bless us as we call your name, Rhiannon, Rhiannon, Rhiannon. Guardian of the South, keeper of fire, I invoke the elements and the spirits of fire. Bless us, Queen of the Fae, with the love that we are. Show us the way. Show us what love is. Invoking the color of love, the feelings of love, all of them, rage, pain, joy, beauty, unity. It is all love, because it is all a part of your human existence. The love that a single kiss could ignite within all who touched her sacred lips. The fury and the righteous rage at the injustices on our planet that comes from that place of love as well. But also the regenerative rebirth of love, the beauty of growth, new life. Bless us as we call your name, Rhiannon, Rhiannon, Anya, Anya, Anya. Guardian of the Southwest, keeper of mystery, she who has walked the shadows with the witches and the women who have been oppressed, and the peoples of this earth who have been oppressed in all their shapes and forms and identifications, weaving themselves through history as she has weaved her story through history, hidden, awakening now. She moves through the heartbeat, through the veins of all those oppressed, awakening your true self to rise at this time. Bless us as we call your name, Mary Magdalene, Mary Magdalene, Mary Magdalene. Guardian of the West, keeper of water, I invoke the elements and the spirits of water now. Keeper of the cauldron, wisdom of alchemy, wisdom of the compassion that moves beyond the human understanding of empathy, sympathy, awakening our hearts to our own. As the light of aquamarine crystals pour over our body, as the waters of this deity transform something that you have been holding within your sacred heart, within your womb or hora, through the cleansing of this aquamarine water. When the water stops pouring, this deity hands you this piece of aquamarine, implanting it within your heart and one within your womb or your hora, awakening a part of you that is ready to be reborn after this death portal, after this space of release and letting go happens at Samhain. Accepting this by placing your hand on your heart and your womb. Bless us as we call your name. Caradwin, Caradwin, Caradwin. Guardian of the Northwest, weaver of our sacred circle, queen of witches, she who arrives as the bridge between the Summerlands and Earth, to share the wisdom and the knowledge that will empower the oppressed to move through this time, to take their power back. Bless us as you weave this sacred circle sealed, as we call your name, Aradia, Aradia, Aradia. Calling forth from beneath us our loving Earth Mother to rise up and support us from below. Calling forth the ancestors whose flesh became the earth, who walk with us in a good way. Calling forth the ancestors who walked the land that each of us individually walk before us, that walk with us in a good way. We honor you. We call you forth to share your wisdom. We call forth the Fae, the elementals, and the gnomes, all of those spirits that are protectors of the Earth Mother. Call your presence forth and we honor you. The sweetness of our breath. From above us, we call forth the star brothers and circles, star brothers and sisters, to seal the top of this circle while keeping it open for the transcendent wisdom to pour in. We call forth the star systems from which, wherever we resonated before this time on Earth, the wisdom we gained from those other places and spaces and lives and timelines, we are open to that wisdom to pour in now. Bringing your hands to heart center, left hand on your heart, right hand over it, as you take a breath and invite your I am presence into the center of this sacred circle, anchoring into each of our sovereign I am presences, individually as a collective, casting this circle across all timelines and dimensions, across rivers and oceans, cities, countries, mountains, plains, until all who have accepted this sacred circle arrive at center individually as a sovereign individual, collectively with us now, connected by a red thread. and a gold thread that are woven between us. And as you arrive in the space within your mind's eye, I invite you to move your eyes, keeping them closed, moving them to as if you are going cross-eyed, as gently as you can, kind of with your eyes closed, looking down at your nose. And allow the vision of a small child in the distance walking down a dusty dirt road, surrounded by trees. They're orange. Tree leaves are everywhere. They're on the ground. They're still on the trees. The brown weeds that grow right up to this dusty trail. It's this little child skipping down the road. Maybe she's running, or he's running, or they're running. Their arms are out and they're touching this tall brown grass. Maybe that grass is taller than they are. And they get closer to you, and as they get closer to you, you slow down to a walk. And they're looking directly into your eyes and transmuting a question to you, asking you, are you safe for them to approach? And the reason they ask you this question is because they have existed within your heart and center for a very long time. And the voice that's been talking to them is the voice of your inner critic. So those times where you looked in the mirror and thought you weren't enough, you criticized yourself, or you took the criticism of someone else and internalized it and made it your truth, you were talking to them. And so right now they pause in front of you, asking if that is who is stepping forward, or is it the real you? Is it the you that they know you to be? But that doesn't come out very often. And you're going to say to them that you are the one to show up for them. That yes, you, the real you, the one that wants to reparent this aspect of you, is showing up right now. And that you will protect this little child that you see before you in the distance with everything in you. That you will not let the voice of that inner critic into your mind ever again. That when you hear that voice, you're gonna rise right up in front of it, right between that inner child that exists within you and the voice of the inner critic, and cast it out so that this part of you is safe. And as she accepts this truth, she runs, or they run, he runs right up to you. And you kneel down right to their height. You look into their eyes. You notice the color of their eyes and the story their eyes tell you. In this moment, there's a story that this little boy or little girl, this little one within you, has been carrying for a long time. And it's behind those blue eyes, behind those brown eyes, behind those hazel eyes, behind those green eyes. That part that not everybody always sees when they look at you. They see you dressed up They see you looking good and they think all is well, but behind your eyes is this little child's eyes. And they have a story, and they have a pain, and they have a wound, and they want to entrust you with that story because they need your love. They need your trust. You see, this child within you not only carries a pain, but they carry a genius. Part of you that shines like the sun and the moon, that can't get out until they trust you and you trust them, that the story that they hold will not break the adult that you are. So in this moment, you open up to the story they have to tell you by opening your arms and sitting down, reaching your arms out and pulling them in, pulling this little child right up into your heart until they become you. And you feel the story, you feel the pain, you feel the wound, and you hold them in it. And you tell them that they are beautiful, they are strong, and they are worthy, and they are perfect, and that there is so much beauty that exists beyond them, and that this pain, this wound, this story they hold, that does not define them. There is a part of them that has remained whole, pure, and innocent, and the most genius, beautiful part of you, even with that pain, even with that wound. We know that part of us. We love that part of us. And we are the protector of that part of us. The fierce warrior, warrioress, the hero or the heroine of the story, the one that saves their self, is claiming that right now. Taking a deep breath in and out as we lift this circle up, up, up to the 7th and 8th plane of consciousness. We lift our eyes up and see the eyes of our inner child smiling down upon us. And you're accepting now that their wisdom will pour in through you about all the things they knew about you as a child that were special, that were genius, that were gifts, that should have been acknowledged and nurtured, that weren't, that maybe you didn't even know about. So I'm going to give you a moment in silence to receive these gifts in your hands. Please allow the voice in your mind to be the words of this child telling you of these gifts. Your job is only to accept that you are worthy to receive them and do not doubt them. The gift has arrived in your right hand. The gift has arrived in your left hand. And one more gift has arrived, sitting in your lap. These unique gifts are yours and yours alone. Others may have similar gifts, but they're not the same as the one that was bestowed upon you today. Because you have a path and a mission that is deeply connected to these abilities that your inner child showed you as a gift. The gift is the child within you awakening to your deepest potential. smiling and thanking your child self. Just letting them know that they are welcome to be a part of your journey, always, from this moment forward. And as we do this sovereign step of reclaiming part of ourselves that has long been buried, we promise to be our own savior, our own heroine, our own hero, and to walk the path our soul has always meant for us to walk. And as we do so, we seal this sacred circle and all that has been done here, and ask that the circle remain open until each of us individually lie our heads down to sleep, when the circle will be open but never broken, and the wisdom gained during their time in the 7th and 8th plane of wisdom of the deities that surround them and the child within them speaking through them, that the embodiment portion of the circle being open will go with smooth grace, with ease, with understanding, and full trust. This circle is now sealed, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. It is done, it is done, it is done, and so it is. Blessed be. I invite you to take a deep breath in, a long, slow breath out the mouth. Deep breath in, awakening every part of your body, wiggling the fingers and the toes, maybe rolling your head right and left, up and down, exhaling out. One final breath, deep inhale. This time as you exhale, flutter your eyes open and find yourself back in this time and space here in this room. I invite you to share in the chat anything that you want to share. Maybe share what those gifts are, the colors of light you've seen. You are welcome to share whatever you like. Pink and dragons, ooh. So thank you all for being here today as we cast this sacred circle. Talked about a lot of stuff today. All star tarot readings. Thank you for jumping in. That's my daughter, you guys, if you want to follow her. Thank you, Lilith. Dark blue, dark green. You cried. Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you, Jillian. Haley, thank you. Ooh, the Northern Lights. I kind of was seeing something like that myself. Saw rosy pinks and gold. Got cold near the end. Ooh. Blue and purple, several colors. Well, I'm glad you were all here, whether it be at the end or for the whole thing. Thank you for showing up live with me each week. And thank you for sharing. Cold around my nose and my mouth. I saw purple. My growths were very premonition, clairvoyance, and healer. I love that. That's so beautiful. Still crying. Oh. Well, thank you guys for being here and for listening. And I invite you to check out all my offerings. If you haven't followed me yet, go follow me. Hit the follow button, check out my videos. The algorithm has been weird lately because I believe all the Christians are reporting my account. which I'm going to be doing some spell work to stop that. But I would appreciate if you guys went and watched my videos and hearted them so you start seeing my stuff again, because some weird stuff is happening. I usually go live every Sunday. I will not be live next Sunday. It's my anniversary. I'm going to Colorado on the is it called Silver Springs train ride? And then the next week I will be leaving for a retreat, but I will be coming live that Sunday just for a little bit in the morning before I head out to Sedona. So I won't be here this next week, but please, keep an eye on my page and like some of the videos, comment. So absolutely, you can follow me. Thank you, you guys. And thanks for being here. And yeah, if nobody has any other questions, I'm gonna call it a day. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, guys. Hugs to you. Thank you for the wishes, Jillian and Haley and Alia and everybody that's wishing me a happy anniversary. It's 18 years. Get some water, rest and drink. Thank you, Marjorie. I'm a bit tired. The change in season is giving me some issues this week. So I have a lot going on in my world, and my body is like, rest, and there's seems to be no time for rest. So trying to navigate a lot right now. I love you guys. Thank you for being part of my community, and I won't see you next week, but I will see you the following week. So please go watch all my videos. So all the things that are happening on my end, them telling me videos aren't allowed up that should be up, and all these weird things. So I just need my people to show the algorithm that, you know what, they want to see it. So I thank you for being here. Love you all so much. Please go check out my witch school. Check out Salem Coven Retreat. We have 3 spaces left for that. Payment plans are left. And thank you, Marjorie, for being my moderator every week. And I love you all. Have a happy Sunday. I will see you in 2 weeks. If I don't go live during the middle of the week, I may go live during the middle of this week. We'll see.